recording here. Perfect. So I have a few colleagues joining with me today from OHR. Veronica, would you like to introduce yourself really fast? And then I'll hand it to Stephen to introduce himself as well.
Sure. My name is Veronica Herrera. I'm a Senior Talent Management Coordinator in the Office of Human Resources.
Thanks, Veronica. Stephen?
Hi, I'm Stephen Mentz, and I am a Talent Management Coordinator in the Office of Human Resources as well.
I don't know if my colleague Kate is on the call yet. I didn't see her pop in yet, but we might have one more governance subcommittee member joining us in just a few moments for the presentation too. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So just a few housekeeping things before we kind of go into the content of the grants. Again, this session is going to be recorded. Everyone should have received that notification a few seconds ago. I have turned on the closed captioning service as well. So if anyone's having issues, please let me know. One thing that we do ask for everyone today is to please make sure your microphone is turned off if you aren't speaking, just so we don't pick up any outside interference or noise as we kind of go through this presentation today. At the end of the presentation, we will have some time for folks to ask some questions during a Q&A. So feel free to mute yourself then or to drop your question in the chat feature, and we'll be happy to get to those at the end of the presentation. And for those of you in attendance today, we will follow up with you with a Qualtrics survey to kind of gather your feedback and make sure this is helpful as you're kind of going through the application process for the grants. So be on the lookout for a follow-up email from me, hopefully by the beginning of next week. Just a few housekeeping things. So what are we going to talk about for the next few moments, right? So we're just going to give a broad overview of the grants program in partnership with OHR and USAC. A lot of this information will be on the Gateway to Learning website, but we just want to reiterate a few key points today. We're going to take a little bit of time to go over the individual sections of the rubric. We have a few suggestions and tips and kind of best practices for applicants as they move forward in the process. Again, we'll have some time for Q&A today. And then we have a set of our own FAQs that we come across as USAC and OHR reviewers, just to kind of clear up any loose ends at the end of the presentation, so you can refer back to it as a resource if you want, with some of our own FAQs that we've come up with for today. So that's kind of what the plan of action will be. So again, just kind of reiterating some of the information that's also posted on the website, but just going over some key points here. So again, OHR and USAC team up twice a year to implement the staff career development grants for university staff here at Ohio State, who are really seeking funds to further their own professional development in their individual position here at the university. So we do offer individual grants of up to $1,250. If you're applying as a group between groups of 2 and 10, you have access to up to $1,750, and then groups of 11 and more have access to up to $2,000 for their professional development opportunity. The grant program is a reimbursement basis only program, so that's something to keep in mind as you're kind of moving forward in this process. Some examples of what the grant can be used to or used toward, you can see listed on the screen here. This is not an exhaustive list, but these are types of opportunities that we come up that we see the most. So registration fees for conferences and seminars, books and materials for continuing education and professional certifications. We see that a lot as we go through the applications every grant cycle, and equipment and software that will really kind of add to your day-to-day and whatever your position is at the university. We see those types of opportunities come across our desk when we are reviewing those proposals through these grant cycles. But again, this is not an exhaustive list, but kind of give some context of what those opportunities that people are applying for every grant cycle. So kind of going into the rubric a little bit, again, this is posted on the Gateway to Learning website, so everyone has access to the rubric as you're applying to the grants. That's really important to take note of, but it's kind of taking a deeper dive into the rubric for the next few moments. So section number 1 of the rubric is really pretty straightforward because we moved to a completely online application. This is a relatively straightforward part of the application process. So the first thing that we take a look at is that the application is complete, it's submitted, and then it's filled in nicely. This is easy because it's online, right? So that's a pretty easy 3 points for everyone who's applying for the grant cycle. We also want to make sure that everyone has attached some supportive documentation. We'll chat about that in a few moments here. If you're applying to a group application, we want to make sure that we have the contact info for all of those group participants in your application. So that's really important that we have everyone's titles and contact information if it's a group application. And then number 3, we're going to take a look at folks who have not received a grant in the past 2 years. Again, you're not deducted points, but if you have not received a grant in the past 2 years, you get that automatic 4 points. If you have received a grant in the past 2 years, you won't get those 4 points. Again, it's not a reduction, but we want to make sure that folks are applying to this grant opportunity for those who haven't had access to it before. So we do take a look at that as we're reviewing applications for the grants. And that is section 1, which again is pretty straightforward. So section 2 is really the meat of the proposal, right? So section 2 is broken up into 3 different criterion, which I'll touch upon in a few minutes. But this is really the framework that we're using to evaluate your application as we're going through individual proposals, right? So we're going to take a look at 3 different things: the professional development proposal itself, the benefits to the career unit and university, and then your budget information for the particular opportunity that you're applying for. Each of these criterion are scored into 4 rating scales that you can see projected on the screen here, and those range from 0 to 10 points. So the first criteria that we look at is the actual proposal itself. And this is really the what, the why, the how of the professional development opportunity that you're seeking funding for, right? So again, this is what are you doing? Why are you doing it? How you're going to do that? And why this particular professional development opportunity versus anything else. This seems pretty straightforward, but what we really need here is for applicants to flesh this out as much as possible, right? We want to know what you're doing and why you're bringing this to the table for us to see. So the more information that you can provide on exactly what you want to do and how you want to do it, and how it relates to your individual professional responsibilities here at Ohio State. So the more info you can provide, the better for the OHR and USAC reviewers when we start reviewing proposals. Criteria number 2, benefits to career unit and university. So again, when you're reviewing the rubric that's posted on the website, we're really asking for kind of 3 things in one here, right? So we want to make sure that you're providing those clear benefits to your individual position, your home unit at the university, and then also the university community at large. So as you can see projected on the screen here, we're very explicit in what we're asking. So you want to make sure that you're hitting upon those 3 different buckets. So again, your individual position, your home unit, and the university. So we're looking at 3 things in one. So make sure you flesh those out as much as you possibly can. Some folks might want to hit career, just my day-to-day, which is great. Some people might just want to say, hey, this is really going to help the university at large. Again, that's great. But we're really looking at 3 different buckets here in criteria number 2. And if anyone has any specific questions regarding that, feel free to chime in the Q&A. I'd be happy to clear that up. But again, we're looking at 3 different buckets for criteria number 2. So make sure you would hit all 3 of those. Criteria number 3 is your budget information. We want to make sure that this section is fully completed. And again, this is where it's great that we have a completely online form, but some folks tend to say, well, here's my budget for $1,500 for a webinar. That's fantastic, but we kind of need a little bit more than just the webinar itself. We want to see, what is the cost breakdown of this? What are the itemized kind of budget items that you're going to use for your particular webinar, right? So the more information on your budget that you can provide us, the more websites, the more documentation, the actual expenditures themselves, and how you're coming up with this amount, that's going to be really needed for us as we review your applications moving forward. So again, more attachments, more documentations, the more you can flesh this out, the better. Please just don't put $1,000 conference and then I'm done. That's great, but we really need to know more information because we can't review your application if we don't have all that info. And again, if you have any specific questions, be happy to review that in the Q&A or the FAQ. So again, this is just a breakdown of the points allotment. Again, this is on the website that you can see on the rubric here. So 100 points max. You have 2 different sections there and different criteria that we will be reviewing applications on. So what is our timeline? Again, the professional development opportunity window, the application window is currently open. So it opened March 1st and that'll end March 31st. So for those of you on the call today, you're still not sure if you want to apply or not. You have about a week and a half left to make that decision, but please don't wait till the last minute. You want to go ahead and start working on that as soon as you can. But this application window does end the end of this month. We plan to make our announcements by May 7th. And again, the professional development opportunity window that you're seeking funding for needs to take place between May 2021 and September 2021. So that's the window that we're working with for this current cycle. So kind of going over some suggestions and tips and best practices that we've come across, reviewing the applications for the past few years now. Again, as I stated a few moments ago, please don't wait to the last minute to start crafting your application. That kind of goes without saying. I know everyone's incredibly busy and we're operating in a mostly virtual, challenging time with the pandemic. But again, the more time you give yourself to complete your application, the better. Again, just to reiterate one more time, the more specific and detailed you can be in your proposal, that is the best for us as reviewers. I can't really stress that enough. The more information we have on your proposal, the better for us as reviewers. So like I said in parentheses, don't make us guess. Just be clear, be direct, but also give us a lot of information. Attach supporting documentation, especially for your budget. Again, the more info we have, the better. And again, the rubric is displayed on the website for anyone who's applying on that Gateway to Learning website. So please review that rubric as carefully as you possibly can, because we are asking some pretty specific questions, and that's what we're looking for in your proposal. A few other just kind of housekeeping and administrative things that kind of help us on our side of the review process. Please make sure to list your supervisor. This will be listed on the application website. So please make sure you list that individual, whomever you report to, just so we have that on our ends. If you're submitting a group application, all members need to be listed in that application. Just make sure that's very clear. We have their contact info, their titles at the university as well. Just so we'll need that for all those group application proposals. Again, this is a reimbursement-based grant program. So something to keep in mind as you move forward. If your home unit or department is paying, you will be prompted to list your fiscal contact or your fiscal manager, whoever will be handling those transfers or the administration of those funds. So if your home department is paying for that up front, you want to make sure you have that information, that contact person ready to go before you submit your application. At this point, I hope I didn't speak for too long. Okay, 15 minutes, not too bad. But at this point, before we go to our own prepared FAQs, we just wanted to open up to anyone in the audience today. If anyone had questions, if anyone has questions after today, the 2 websites that are projected, the 2 email addresses projected on the screen rather, those are folks you can reach out to if you have any follow-up questions that were not answered today. Be happy to circle back with folks if they have questions after this presentation. But with that being said, if anyone has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself or drop those in the chat. And either myself or the OHR team can definitely help out.
Are you able to give us some parameters of typical awards, like more than this, less than this is what's typically awarded as we're developing our budgets?
So I'll chime in just really fast and I'll shift it over probably to my colleague Veronica, because I don't want to misspeak or mischaracterize. But I know for individual awards that up to $1,250, that's kind of what we're looking for. So people can obviously ask for less than $1,250, but please note that you can ask up to $1,250. So if your professional development opportunity requires more than that, then I think the individual applicant will have to make up that difference elsewhere. And I'm gonna kind of put my colleague Veronica on the spot because I don't want to mischaracterize that.
No, that's absolutely right. You can, as an individual, you can request up to $1,250 for your award. If you have group grants are obviously more than that as well. Was that the question that you were getting at there, is the amount?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you for that question.
There is a question in the chat. When is
sure.
the next application period? And I can answer that by saying the next application period should be in July. Our normal cadence is to open application periods both in January and July. Unfortunately, the last two application periods were postponed due to different implementations happening on campus. But we do hope to resume our regular cadence with July this year.
Question from my end on the application related to the details that you're looking for. It seems like a lot, and then you're looking for as much detail as possible, you said, but then the application says a one-page proposal. Are you looking for as much detail as possible, or in a one page, or what's sort of like the guidance on that?
Sure, Veronica, you want to take that one? Sure.
Sure, I can take this.
Sure.
So we say about a one-page proposal. Again, this is all recommendations. It's not gonna be deducted from your proposal if it's one page and you met all of the criteria and you've given us everything we've asked for. You're not going to lose points for that. If it's a couple pages more, we're not going to take points away from you for submitting something larger. What we're just asking for is that you detail, if you can explain in one page all of the three benefits to you, your career, the university as a whole and the unit, then that should suffice. So it's kind of a suggestion, but we do advise that you give us as much as you can about your professional development and why you're seeking that professional development.
I just had a clarifying question about the benefits to career unit and university. So I'm with one of the discovery themes, so I fall outside of like the traditional university structure. I'm not in a technical unit. Am I still okay to say that my discovery theme is the unit within the university?
Yes, so as an affiliate of the university, yes, we still consider our affiliates part of the university as a whole. And so in that kind of university thing, we're kind of looking for the larger benefit to the community and to the university itself.
Okay.
All great questions.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else have a question before we go into our own kind of FAQs?
Another question about the budget. With some of these opportunities, they don't really itemize the cost. They just say, here's the cost, and and everything is included as a part of this cost. Would you want to see like, here's the entire cost and here's what's everything that's a part of this? Or can you elaborate more on those situations where the organization doesn't really itemize the costs?
I can take this, sure. So can I ask you, are you looking at like a conference? Is there a specific type of professional development you're looking for?
For me, in this case, it is related to a certification that is delivered online.
Okay, so for that instance and for other instances as well, what we're looking for is for reimbursement purposes. So your certification will cost you this much, but there might be classes within that break out differently. As long as we get a cost for what you're going to pay, and we can itemize that with supporting documentation that shows this is the cost of that program, that's what we need to look for. But if you're going to be going on a conference, and there's going to be a registration fee, and there's going to be other travel expenses in that, then we do look for a little more itemized there. Just if you know that there's a specific expense per an item, go ahead and list it. If it's a programmatic item and it's $12.50 for the whole program, then go ahead and list it as that.
Thank you.
I think I see something in the chat, but I can't see it because I'm sharing my screen.
Sure. It says, are you less likely to be awarded a grant if someone else in your unit or office has received one recently? Great question.
That's an excellent question. Veronica, I'm gonna give it back to you. Again, I don't want to say anything inaccurate.
No problem. Actually, no. So while we do look to see if you've been awarded a grant previously, we're not looking at the whole units and checking to see if anybody else has. And with the way our review process is set up, there isn't going to be any reviewers saying, oh, I have people in this group and you have people in this group. So to answer the question completely on, the answer is no. We like to be as open and we want to give this money away. We want you guys to develop. So we don't put those parameters on this at this point. Do we need a supporting letter from a supervisor? So I did want to comment back on there where it says, please to make sure you list your supervisor. The answer to your question is no, we don't necessarily need a supporting letter from your supervisor. However, if you are planning to use department funds, we will require that you have your supervisor listed and your fiscal manager listed. And if you are applying for an individual grant, we will not contact your supervisor aside from to carbon copy them in your notification. Whether you receive an award or not, they'll be copied in on that. However, for a department grant, then we would at least need your supervisor listed for that. Okay, another question in the chat. Hi, Veronica, let me see. Okay, there's another question about affiliates, which I think we will have to go back and look up for that person specifically.
Okay, no problem. Anyone else have anything before I shift it to the last slide? These are all excellent questions that I'm also taking notes to bring back to some USAC folks for future cycles. These are great.
Hey, I have a question.
Sure.
So on the website for the eligibility, I see that you need to have 2 continuous years of service with Ohio State. So this may be like an individual question, but I've been in this role for 1 year and 8 months, but prior to that, I was working within residence life at Ohio State for 2 years, but in a capacity as a master's student. So I wasn't sure if, I know for some things it combines into 1 year because it was not full time, but I wasn't sure if that would make me ineligible at this time.
Great question. So at this time, we are not counting student time as part of a continuous service. And also to answer the gap question, if your gap between times of service is less than 6 months, then we will move you on into consideration for review. But we ask that it be continuously 2 years of service at the date of your professional development opportunity. So if you have 1 year and 8 months, but your professional development opportunity is not occurring for another 3 or 4 months, then you can still apply for that and be considered eligible for that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I have a question, please.
Sure.
I wanted to find out if you are in a leadership position, do you need to be applying under that staff manager development section, or do you need to apply under staff?
Great question.
Wonderful
So-
question.
Yes, it is a wonderful question. So you can actually apply for both as a leader, as a manager. So the difference between the 2 grants is that the staff development grant is open to opportunities outside of OSU. So if there's a conference you want to go to, it's not OSU affiliated, you can go ahead and apply for that. It's also open to staff who aren't necessarily managers. So it's not topic relevant. It doesn't have to be a leadership or managerial topic, where the manager staff grant does. Currently, it should be used for opportunities within OSU. So, like the MAPS programs or those kind of things. And the professional development should be manager or leadership related. So that's
Okay,
kind of the
thank you.
difference currently between the two.
Anyone have anything else before I just advance to one more slide?
So we have somebody asking if the PowerPoint will be available.
As long as I get approval from the appropriate folks, I'm happy to send it, but I don't want to violate any. I don't know if we'll be able to send it out. I'm not sure. We'll have it posted. I mean, I can share it on my end. It's not a problem for me.
Yeah, I don't believe that it is. Again, a lot of this stuff is also listed at our website. This video will be made available on our website as well. So
I have a question related to the budget. I'm thinking of taking some courses in the summer and autumn semester. And I know the grant period is from May to September. I'm wondering if the cost related to the autumn semester will be covered by the grant.
yeah, so we are in that little awkward stage here where we're trying to get back on cycles. So we have taken all of that into consideration. And for academic courses, we are allowing that to be an exception. So if you apply this time and it's supposed to cover your autumn courses, it'll definitely extend through the end of your autumn courses.
Okay, thank you. And another related question. I think that I'm international status. So if I enroll in a course, there's a non-resident fee. I think the current there might be some policy change in the autumn semester related to the non-resident fee. It might not be covered in this autumn. So when I'm not sure for the budget information, if I should I list that in include that part, or I mean maybe when I was applying, I'm not sure what the situation will be in the autumn. What if
I always recommend that you go ahead and list anything that you think may be included. For your particular case, I would say to go ahead and list tuition and fees, so that can cover any of the general fees in your application proposal. That way you're kind of covered, whether it is part of it or isn't part of it. Just keep in mind, we'll only be able to reimburse you for up to that, whatever award amount it is that we've awarded you when it comes time for reimbursement. Another thing I would like to note too is for all of the academic classes, academic, if it's a degree seeking course, it may be subject to tax. So that's something that we will look into when come reimbursement, but that's something you should know upfront.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else? All excellent questions. This is great. All right, I'm going to go ahead and just advance and we'll kind of wrap up with some of our own FAQs. Let me make sure this is working here. Perfect. So these are just some of the questions that both USAC and OHR folks tend to get a lot after every review cycle. So hopefully these are helpful for you all as we kind of move forward. And I guess what I can do these one by one, and if Veronica and Stephen want to chime in and say, hey, that was wrong, or like add something, just please go ahead and chime in. So something that we get a lot on our ends after the review cycles kind of wrap up is how are applications reviewed and scored. So each individual proposal is reviewed by members of OHR and USAC in groups. So it isn't just one person reviewing the proposal, it is a group of folks who do those scoring and make those assessments, right? So I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty, but it is a partnership between USAC and OHR who's reviewed those proposals. So, but it is not one individual person saying yes or no. So it's something to kind of keep in mind as you apply. I believe this question was actually asked just a few moments ago of providing some examples of the types of professional development that have been awarded in the past. Again, in the beginning of the presentation, the proposals that I tend to come across a lot, and I'll have Veronica and or Stephen chime in, is a lot of conferences and webinars, a lot of like seminars, or I really want the certification to help my office out in completing X, Y, and Z. I review a lot of proposals that come from the Wexner Medical Center, and that's way over my head. And a lot of those folks are seeking certifications and different things to kind of advance their office and their individual positions. But those are types of opportunities that I tend to see the most, are those kind of workshops, conferences, and certifications. Veronica, I don't know if you come across anything that you come across a lot that I didn't reference here.
No, you hit on most of them. I do want to add, though, that as we see proposals coming in, we are noticing that people are getting a little more creative with how they use some of the professional development, or creative in the impact that it has. So we do have group grants come in for their entire department, and they bring somebody in who gives some sort of a training or delivers maybe even some certification, and they've applied to cover the cost of that person coming in, and it actually impacts their entire department. So stuff like that we've seen come through, and we've actually awarded. So if you have questions about that, or you have something that's a little more intricate or different or kind of out of the box, feel free to give us a call and contact us, and we can go ahead and discuss that further.
Thanks, Veronica. How will natural disasters or other extenuating circumstances impact receiving the grant? I'm actually going to refer back to Veronica on this one, because she can articulate this way better than I can. Veronica, do you want to take that away?
Absolutely. So as we've seen, this past year has been just very different. And so in keeping in mind that sometimes these natural disasters or extenuating circumstances even personally occur, we do make allocations for that. We do, for example, in COVID times, we have allowed people to apply for an extension or reallocation of their funds. There's a process for that, but we do, the point of having the grants is that we want you to use these funds to go and seek professional development. So we don't want to penalize you for anything that happens outside of your control. So we are working together with USAC to come up with some of this, especially during COVID, some of the circumstances, some of the timelines, how far are we going to extend that deadline? But we are very gracious when we do these things. And so if anything does occur and you've submitted and you were awarded, something changes, contact us and we'll discuss that, and we'll let you know if we can grant an extension or if you need to submit for a reallocation, or how in some circumstances you could forfeit and then apply again in the next season, and move forward from there.
Thanks, Veronica. Thanks so much.
Mhm.
Another question I project on the screen here that for tonight is, what if I have questions that were not covered by this particular presentation this evening? Again, just to kind of reiterate, I'm going to project these two email addresses on the screen just for a few more seconds. If you have any questions regarding the staff career development grant, feel free to reach out to us, either OHR folks or USAC folks, and we will make sure we get you to the right person and make sure that your questions are being answered. So don't hesitate to reach out to one or two of those email addresses if you have any follow-up questions as we get closer to that deadline.
Also, I'd like to refer you, and I just put a link in the chat to our Gateway to Learning site. It has all of our staff career development and manager grant development information there as well.
Thanks, Veronica.
Mhm.
And then again, where can I find a copy of this particular recording and presentation? We will post this to our websites in the next several days or so. So everyone will have access to it. If you're in attendance today, I will pull the registration link off Zoom, and I can follow up with everyone that way as well, in addition to that Qualtrics form. And so everyone will have access to this if you want to refer back to it when you get close to that application deadline. So we'll reach out to everyone. And I think those are actually all of my questions. So I'm actually going to stop sharing. I'm going to stop recording as well.